time that because the investigation is ongoing, both from the Nigerian side and from the government of Guinea-Bissau, who have shown a serious commitment to working with the Nigerian embassy to ensuring that they're brought to book, I think that we should await the outcome of that investigation so that it's not preemptive.
Now, going by what he said when Channels TV spoke with Ambassador Megide Adams, the Nigeria's ambassador to Guinea-Bissau, he said that the attack was politically motivated, and he also gave us the version of the Guinea-Bissau's foreign minister that said that it was in reaction of Nigeria's role in ECOWAS engagement in the region that they felt Nigerian government was supporting the incumbents. So, doesn't it raise the question of Nigeria's engagement and his outpour of generosity abroad?
Well, let me say that the Committee on Foreign Relations has constantly spoken about the fact, especially in the wake of the Benghazi attacks, the attacks on Benghazi, of the American missions in Benghazi. And we have constantly said that because of the pivotal role that Nigeria plays in exporting peace, in United Nations peacekeeping, peace enforcement, that we need to come to the place where we start to look very critically at the vulnerability of our missions. We have spoken to securing these missions even more and securing the lives of Nigerians in these places. Now, it is also very important for us to realize that Nigeria must, as a country, as the leader of the region, as the leader of the sub-region, Nigeria also plays a pivotal role in world peace, regional peace. But I do not think that what happened in Guinea-Bissau was an unfortunate incident. Of course, most things are politically motivated. Most things around the world could have a political slant to them. But I think that what is more important is that as a country, as a corporate entity, as a sovereign state, how are we viewed and how do we engage our people and what is our responsibility to the rest of the world? And I must say today that Nigeria has shown a lot of responsibility to the rest of the world in terms of what it is that we are expected to give up to the rest of the world.
Now, you talk about the backlash. Is Nigeria not paying a costly price?
Well, I believe that Nigeria has a very noble foreign policy thrust with regards to exporting peace and stability around the world. Of course, there's so many countries, and I speak specifically to the Guinea-Bissau situation. Now, without taking away anything from what the foreign minister of Guinea-Bissau said, I believe that there's so many conflicting stories with regards to that particular issue. There's a group of people who said that a couple of Nigerians tried to kidnap a citizen, and of course they came up with saying it was their political opponents. Of course, and the story about Nigeria's pivotal role in world peace and enforcing peace around the world cannot be overemphasized. But let's also state very clearly that there are certain countries who have xenophobic tendencies towards everybody and especially towards Nigerians. And so yes, we're doing that, but to tie that in directly with what Nigeria does with regards to world peace would be an unfair, would be drawing an unfair chain. Look at it. Nigeria has committed 13 billion around the world, and it's $13 billion since 1960, since she gained her independence in 1960. We have sent out 250,000 people to peacekeeping missions around the world. We have presently 6,000 people with the United Nations, 4,000 of whom are in Darfur, and then this is the first isolated case in Guinea-Bissau that states that the reason that they did that was because Nigeria had come into Guinea-Bissau to try to manage the election processes. So I think that it is not a fair assessment. Let me also say that countries like India, for instance, also send out a lot of troops to the United Nations, the United States, for instance, and everywhere. And so the question now becomes, now based on the fact that there's the one isolated case in Guinea-Bissau, should Nigeria now give up her role in peacekeeping around the world? I think we can't give up so much to stay minimally safer. I don't think it's a fair.
Now, looking at the huge contribution of Nigerians in terms of deployment of troops abroad and its generosity in terms of supplying of logistics to some of these conflict-ridden regions, have you been able to factor in the principle of reciprocity
Well, I think that there's so many ways to look at it. First and foremost, an overall safer world is a safer Nigeria. So if we send people out to make sure the world is safe, then Nigerians are safer. So for us, it's a gain. Now, in international law and in international agreements in sovereign states, we can't consistently put it down to bread and butter.
When you said it's not always a case of bread and butter for Nigeria, but now when we consider the dynamics of international relations, world powers have been able to find their way to the mainstream of the countries they are supporting. We see U.S. send troops down to conflict-ridden zones, but they've been able to get their way into the mainstream of their economy in terms of post-war reconstruction contracts and also some bilateral engagements that are in favor of their economy. So is Nigeria factoring that into our foreign policy trust?
Well, Nigeria has had that conversation, and it's a conversation that everybody has always said. And we in the House of Representatives as well have wondered what we have gotten out of it in terms of bread and butter, in terms of foreign trade and, you know, expanding our trade frontiers. But let's also not forget that it is tied into our foreign policy. At the end of 1960, Nigeria was a new country that had been birthed, landed on the scene, was the first country, you know, we went in there, you know, headlong into the peacekeeping, went into Congo. And I think it was Nigeria's way of saying to the rest of the world, here we are. Nigeria is here. And then it became Africa as the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. So I think that where we are today is at the point where we are harnessing the good name and the good mileage that we have built over time. Have we really gotten what we should have gotten in terms of post-war reconstruction and all that? No, we haven't. But I think that that is the reason why there's a new thrust, and that's the reason why we're properly positioned right now to probably go in and engage the countries that we have rescued in the past, as it were, and try to say to them, this is time for us to start to have this conversation about foreign direct investment, and I must say that it is paying off.
Now, let's quickly look into the deployment of 1,200 troops to Mali. This was keenly debated at the floor of the House, and you raised a strong position on this. Now, from the benefit of hindsight, the way this has gone, would you say this was in the best interest of Nigeria?
Well, deployment of troops to Mali was something that I considered at the time absolutely necessary. The Malian issue was on two fronts. There was the military angle and the political angle. And we also realized that with the Arab Springs and everything that was going on in Mali, we realized that there were so many, with the fall of Libya, with the fall of the Gaddafi administration in Libya, there was a lot of arms that were flowed into Mali that caused, of course, the instability in Mali. We also realized that Nigeria was at a place where she was, and still is, incidentally, tackling terrorism, insurgency, and so on and so forth. We all realized that, of course, Boko Haram, which is our local terrorist organization, has ties to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, has ties to Al-Shabaab, and we all realized that the entire region was in trouble. Furthermore, we started to see that what was feeding, that our local Boko Haram was feeding off of these international organizations. And so Nigeria could not have an isolationist agenda, especially in the face of the expansionist agenda of these insurgents. And so I think, and I agreed, that Nigeria going into Mali to nip insurgency at the bud, which was what was feeding the Nigerian insurgents, was a brilliant idea. And of course, I don't know if you recall, but Nigeria actually, when we went into Mali, we actually identified some training grounds, Nigeria Boko Haram training grounds in Mali. And of course, those were the first places that we selfishly and for self-preservation we attacked. And I think it was a fantastic decision to have gone into Mali. So with hindsight, I mean, now, of course, Mali has had its elections, they've had their elections, they have a democratic government in place. Of course, everybody says that elections don't ensure democracy, but I think it's a very good start, and we're continuing to watch that space. Mali is relatively safe, Nigeria is relatively safer, and I guess the world is relatively safer for the decision Nigeria took.
Nigeria is expected to join the League of 15 most influential nations in the world. Now, courtesy of the election